Intimate partner violence has been declared an epidemic here in the city of Toronto. Now there is new guidance to help professionals understand when a client's information can be shared to help save them from harm, even if it's without their consent. Joining us live to discuss this is Ontario's Privacy Commissioner, Patricia Kosseim. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for joining us.
Thank you, Tammie, for having me this morning.
Yeah, no problem. First, what prompted the clarification of these guidelines for professionals?
So in 2022, there was a coroner's inquest into the tragic death of 3 women in Renfrew County. And Recommendation 78 actually called on our office to develop guidance to clarify situations in which personal information can be responsibly shared by professionals when somebody's health or safety or even life is in danger. And so we immediately acted on that recommendation and espoused it and took that on. And very dedicated staff in my office worked with stakeholders across many sectors to develop this guidance, which we just issued yesterday.
All right, and that clarification is going to professionals, including health professionals, people who work in, let's say, the shelter system. Just to give you an example of some of the people who would be in need of this clarification.
So as well, people in the justice sector, people working with children and family services, people working in the intimate partner violence sector, shelters and emergency centers. So all people who touch this tragic issue of intimate partner violence.
And for those professionals, what would they have to consider before they shared personal information about a client without their consent?
Well, before we go there, of course, we always encourage them to seek the consent of the woman in question or of the person, and you know, sometimes they can work with that person in a very trauma-informed manner, culturally sensitive manner, to get their okay with sharing personal information when the professional really senses that their life and safety can be in danger. So we always start with that. But sometimes, as you say, consent isn't possible. The person may be unconscious. The person may not be contactable in like a moment of urgency. The person might be scared and unsure what to do, whether to consent, or the person may just feel completely paralyzed in this situation and fear that by giving consent and sharing personal information, in fact, their abusive partner will retaliate and will escalate matters and make things even worse. So it's in those difficult situations that this guidance is intended to help professionals look at the situation, assess all the factors, and know, first and foremost, that the laws allow them to share personal information when a person's life or health is in danger or at risk of serious harm. And that's the take-home message, is that the laws, privacy laws, should not be a barrier to saving a life, and that's what this guidance is really intended to do.
Have you heard from professionals any feedback about this guidance and whether or not it needed that clarification, whether they had felt intimidated almost to share that information in certain situations?
Actually, we did. There is a lot of hesitation on the part of professionals. I mean, they take confidentiality and their duty of confidentiality very seriously. And the last thing we want is for them to hesitate to share personal information in situations where it is legally allowable, permissible, because they're just not sure. And they hesitate, or they're afraid of breaching confidentiality or breaching the law. And so we wanted to clarify and make sure they understood there are exceptions in the law that allow them to do this, and also that they shouldn't hesitate. And if they act reasonably and in good faith, you know, there's every support for them under the law to ensure that, you know, they're able to do it in the circumstances that warrant it.
All right, and lastly, because we've run out of time, but quickly here, is there concern that there are victims or survivors who will be hesitant now to reach out to professionals now that they know that there is a chance their personal information could be shared without their consent?
That's a really good question, and thank you for asking it. One of the things that we did in developing this guidance is consulted victims, survivors. We worked with an organization called Women Act, that is dedicated to eradicating gender-based violence, and we got their informed feedback on how to develop this guidance in a sensitive way and in a way that supports women. You know, there are 38,000 cases of intimate partner violence that were reported in Ontario in 2022, the vast majority of which were women, and that's just the cases we know about or were reported. So really taking their perspective into account in developing this guidance, we're hoping that it is supportive, it does help explain the situation, and know that really their consent is the first go-to approach, but when situations arise and escalate where their life or health or safety is in danger, that there are people there to support them and help save their life, literally.
All right, Commissioner Kosseim, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for shedding light on this important issue.
No problem at all. 7:37 here on BT.